Madeira, Manchester, Madrid, Turin, and Manchester again. Aguero! Goal for South Africa! Goal for all Africa! Roma have risen from their ruins!
Welcome back to episode 32 of the On a Yellow Football podcast. Zach, how are you doing today?
I can't complain at all, It's finally getting a little bit nicer out, no more rain.
I know. It is looking very nice outside today. It was actually warm today, which yesterday it was kind of chilly. So, I think we take those small wins. And, of course, Canada won their last game in a really good win. I mean, we were not expecting a scoreline like that. We'll talk about it later on. And, England plays today. So for me, that's great. I'm really excited for that game. And, I think this World Cup has been, it's only like the second group stage games. And we've already seen dramatic finishes. We've already seen underdog moments. And, we're going to talk about some of those things today. All right. With the recap done, let's get into the episode. What do you want to talk about first?
The episode.
Yeah, I kind of put an accent on that one, but what do you want to talk about first?
I'm game for really anything.
I do want to talk about England versus Croatia. What a game for the three Lions. And, obviously, we have a new manager. It's our first ever tournament since, I believe, 2014, because 2018 was when he came in, that we don't have Gareth Southgate. We had Hodgson, I believe, in 2014. And, I thought that Tuchel's game was really promising. Obviously, you're coming off of a manager that made it to three straight finals, or not three straight finals, but made it to, I guess, two straight finals in the Euros and made it to a semi-final in the World Cup. Obviously, you look at that stat line as just on its own, and you see a very successful manager. For England, though, England wants to win, but we haven't won the World Cup since 1966, and we've only won one. But I think it's really promising to see. I think it's just it is great. I heard someone on a different podcast talk about it, and I thought it was absolute nonsense. They said they wouldn't they would if England wins the World Cup, they would be happy, but yet it would be tainted because there's not an English manager. And I thought that was absolutely ridiculous, because I'm like, winner, it doesn't matter for the manager. If England wins, or if any team wins, rather, you're going to commend the nation for winning. You're not going to look down upon it because the manager isn't from that country. You know what I mean?
There's always that discourse where people think that national teams should have a manager that's also of the same nationality, which there is, I feel like, some debate that does make sense, seeing as they're coaching the national team of a country. Mm-hmm. Especially, some Canadians still aren't on the side of Jesse Marsch because he's an American coaching the Canadian national team. But I do think that, when the coach shows, even if they aren't from the country that they're coaching, whether they have experience coaching club teams in that country, whether they come into that national team program and they show extreme pride in that program and will want to build something, I think that it's not only about nationality, because there's so many managers that manage national teams that aren't from the countries they're born in.
Exactly. And to be honest, I would take the win regardless of who's managing the team, because the players on the pitch, they're from that national team, right? So they're from that nation. So I just think that that statement that I heard was just a bit, I don't know. Like I can't really see it because I just look at it because of, being Canadian and also having family in England. I look at it and I'm like, both of the managers of the national teams are from different countries, but yet, they really like the national team that they're coaching, and they still play with an identity that, to be honest, I don't think that regardless of the national team that you're managing, I don't think the nation that you're from is really going to affect anything, because really it's your coaching tactics and your philosophy that matter way more, right? So, England versus Croatia, I thought it was a really solid game. The difference between our game versus Southgate's game, or Tuchel's game versus Southgate's game, is we were more on the attacking front. We really wanted to get that ball back, and we were very aggressive when that ball was lost. And something with, Southgate, our defense under Southgate was really structured, really rigid. It was you lose the ball, but you get back into that defensive shape, trying to lose space so that opposing team that's attacking on you doesn't have options. And, it worked. We made it to finals, but in the big games, we were exploited by the top players. And, there were some other decisions during those games, like it kind of looked like we were playing for penalties in some of those games and, stuff like that. But if you, under Southgate, if you look at the teams that we lost to, Euros 2020 or 2021, or rather, it was we lost in the final against Italy, but that Italian team was a very good team. Then you go to 2022's World Cup. We lost against France 2-1 in the World Cup semifinals before they went to the World Cup final, of course, in that classic match against Argentina. And then you look at the last Euros, we lost against a Spain side that was probably one of the best sides in the world, or was the best side in the world. Obviously, they had the Ballon d'Or winner Rodri on their team. They had Lamine Yamal, who was extremely talented. So, you can look at the teams that we lost to. Like, yes, we didn't win anything, but also we were playing against teams. I think the one team that we could have beaten would have been Italy. We scored first, Shaw scored first, and we kind of held back. We kind of played for the 1 point rather than playing on the front foot. And I think, the difference is like Tuchel, we played on the front foot, and we really, it was a really enjoyable game. We like to pass it outwards to our wingers, who are really talented. Now, I want your kind of opinion on this. I don't think these wingers are going to start this game. I feel like it's going to be the guys that came off the bench last game that are going to start. But, what's your opinions on starting Anthony Gordon left wing and Nani Madueke right wing versus a Saka and a Rashford situation?
I feel like the Gordon start kind of makes sense, considering he just had a massive move to Barcelona. His transfer value is technically now 80 million, so he's one of the most expensive players in the squad now, somehow.
Yeah.
But he didn't have a good game. He
No.
didn't really do anything. But on the opposite side, I think Noni Madueke actually, he provided quite a lot for England in this game. He created a lot of chances. He won the corner that Kane scored on to go up 2-1. And I think he just played. I think he played really well on that side and caused a lot of trouble. And that's, I think, what Arsenal bought him for.
Yeah.
Seeing that he has that potential to be a player that can make those runs and cause defenders issues. And he just kind of had a difficult season doing that in the Premier League. But I think on a team like England that is so strong in that attacking kind of sense, with Elliot Anderson kind of passing the ball up to him and having some sort of like pivot sort of thing on the side there with him, I think it can unlock him and his ability to create those kind of chances.
Exactly. I feel like, our subs really helped us in that game. Obviously, they scored 2 goals during that kind of second half, towards the end of the second half part of the game. And I felt that Rashford should have started over Gordon, and I feel like the game today will possibly be that. Rashford came on and he just showed why and how talented of a player he is, and I'm surprised that Barcelona went for Anthony Gordon when they could have had Rashford for 40 million. Rashford technically now is a Manchester United player once again, but we've tagged along, a 30 million release clause or whatever. So, I think as a player that has a lot of external things happening right now, doesn't really know his future and what club he's going to be playing for next season, maybe that was a reason why he didn't start. But he came off the bench and he showed how talented of a player he is. He obviously took his goal extremely well, but he was just more dynamic than Gordon. Gordon had one shot on net, I believe, in that game and was still in the sixes for rankings. And, Nani Madueke, I thought, had a good game, a decent game. I think technically you could
won
say...
the pen.
Yeah, exactly.
He created two massive chances outside of that.
And you could say
well.
Saka did more because he got an assist, but yet, assists or goals aside, Nani Madueke did do a lot of things in the game that you don't see a lot, right? Like you said, the penalty and the corner kick that got us those key goals. I just think that I think that England itself, we were a well-oiled machine. I think the one thing I really loved about England was when we got the ball, we did these really positive forward runs, which were kind of lacking under Southgate's system because Southgate's system was so rigid. We had these nice forward runs, and you could see it through the Bellingham goal where we gained possession and we quickly fired it up down the line because Bellingham made that positive forward run and obviously took his goal extremely well. Now, I do want to briefly touch on this for England's sake. Elliot Anderson and Declan Rice midfield, what a pairing that is. I felt they were very, very good. Declan Rice has been in the past ridiculed a little bit for his defensive ability or even just people thinking that his defensive ability lacks, especially for the England national team. And he's been criticized for how he's played for the England national team in the past. And, I felt like he kind of proved the doubters wrong in that game. He was phenomenal. But I think that the reason he was phenomenal was the introduction of Elliot Anderson in that midfield. So now, Declan Rice is still playing in that 6 role, but he can move higher up the pitch now. He's not playing in that number 8, playing backwards. He's playing that box-to-box midfielder, and he's able to, use his attacking threat. He's a very good passer of the ball, but I think the one thing that we use him for that's absolutely great when you have a guy like Harry Kane in the box is his set-piece ability. We've seen him score direct free kicks before, but it's also his crossing ability. His corner kicks were phenomenal. They were really well-placed and, inviting for Harry Kane to get his head on it, but we also have other guys that can get their head on it. And, Elliot Anderson, I think, was probably one of the best players on that pitch. Obviously, now you're letting Declan Rice move a bit forward, so he's going to be used and utilized properly. But now you got Elliot Anderson, who was not afraid to make that crunching tackle. He did get 3 fouls in that game, and he also had 8 defensive contributions, which I thought was really interesting. What's your thought on that partnership?
I think it allows Rice to kind of unlock a little bit more of that creativity that you know is there in him. So much during the season at Arsenal, you could see just how creative of a player he is. Not even, just in set-piece scenarios. he's incredibly creative with the ball at his feet and trying to create those chances. He created 4 chances in this game. He got a big assist, chipping that corner in to Kane, a perfectly placed corner, and had a really a really strong game in that midfield. And I think that midfield kind of triangle that they have with Anderson, Bellingham, and Rice, those are 3 incredibly talented midfielders that can all create so much on their own, and putting those guys in a good spot to create chances with one another is great strategy.
Yeah, and I really like that partnership. It really opens up Declan Rice creatively and allows him to be a little bit less defensive, which is how he plays normally, and allows him to be more free and have that freedom to push up the field if he needs to. And I felt like he was really utilized properly in that system. Now, we can't be talking about England all the time in this game without talking about Croatia. I thought Croatia played a pretty decent game. Obviously, they tied the game up 2-2, and it was going into that second half. But I think Croatia lacked a little bit defensively. I felt like Vuskovic didn't really play a great game, but I think there's a couple players that I don't really necessarily know how to grade game or like a good game or a bad game. I kind of want your opinion on this. Like, do you think Luka Modric is past his prime? Obviously, he's 40 years of age.
Well, he's definitely past his prime.
Yeah.
That's not really even a question.
True. But do you think he can still produce at the same, not the same level, but still produce at levels of brilliance like we see with like a Lionel Messi?
I don't think so. Just looking kind of, I kind of forgot that he was even playing club football this year in Milan. I kind of just assumed he retired.
Yeah.
Nobody heard anything about Modric all season long until he obviously gets called up into the Croatia team.
Yeah,
and I just think he's obviously probably going to start every single game for them. Being he's been there for so long, he's the captain of the team. And he's kind of the heartbeat of Croatian football. I just think that at this stage they don't really gain anything from having Modric in the team apart from that leadership.
yeah,
And I think, in general, both teams that in this match, I don't think either team played really well defensively. Neither team, really shut down the other until maybe England in the second half was just a little bit more dominant in just the way they pressed the ball and kept it out of their kind of half. But I don't think either team's defensive line, really paid them any favors in this match.
No.
And I don't think either goaltender really did much either. So I think this was really a match of who could create the better chances, and I think England just won that at the end of the day.
Exactly. I mean, you look at the ratings. England was number 4, and Croatia was number 12, I believe. So you look at the rankings, and I mean, this is a really big matchup. This is the hardest matchup that England is going to play in this group. And it was the first matchup, which is great for England. And, we played... I don't think defensively, it wasn't a defensive game at all. Obviously, a 4-2 scoreline, you don't think it would be a defensive game. That's a lot of goals scored. 6 goals between the teams is a crazy high amount. But we've kind of seen a crazy high amount of goals in this tournament. But yes, I mean, Luka Modric, he conceded the penalty, which wasn't great. But again, he had 33 touches. He only played 58 minutes, though, which is something that I think that a lot of Croatian fans would be worrisome about because, obviously he's age 40. I don't think can play that full 90, especially against tough opposition. So I think he's there. I mean, he's there because he's their best player of all time, right?
I mean, even for club, he barely plays.
Yeah.
He typically gets kind of for Croatia, it seems like every single time he plays for them, he gets subbed off in the 58th minute. Against England, and then their 2 friendly matchups against Belgium and Slovenia, they were all subbed off in the 58th minute. And he, looking at his club fixtures, he rarely plays the full 90 towards the end of the season here. And I think, that's just the kind of the fatigue showing from the season too.
Yeah, he'll probably retire after this World Cup, in my opinion. Maybe play one more season with his club. He has, but during that game, right, he only had one pass into the final third, but he had 100% pass accuracy, I believe. So none of his passes were what's that word? I'm forgetting right now. None of his passes were not deflected. Were, oh my God, intercepted. There we go. Words for me today aren't the greatest, apparently. But yeah, none of them were intercepted. He got 100% pass accuracy. Now, another player I thought that played really good, actually, for Croatia was Perisic. He's another kind of unk on that team, you would say. But he played a very good game. He had 5 passes into the opposition third. His crossing ability was top-notch, and he got a beautiful assist for Musa's goal. So I think that, he's a guy on their team I think also has that leadership quality. Obviously, being in the lineup when they were in 2018, getting to the World Cup final, of course, with Luka Modric's brilliance. But, that's almost 10 years ago, right? That's 8 years ago to the date, right? But, I think he could create a decent amount of goals. He has a great passing ability. He showed that. He was dangerous on the corner kicks. The corner kicks were perfectly placed, and he made some great runs as well, obviously, which contributed to the goal that they scored, Musa's goal. Crazy thing about Musa is that he plays for FC Dallas in the MLS, and they were playing in Dallas. They're playing at Dallas Stadium. So that was really, really cool to see, kind of a hometown player scoring in a World Cup. Now,
Well, even though they don't play in that stadium.
yes, but they play in that state and that city. Now, moving on to a different game. Canada v. Qatar. What's your opinion on that game? I do not think that we were expecting a scoreline of that, like that scoreline.
Well, I don't think anybody predicted Canada to, win their first ever game in a World Cup by the scoreline of 6-0.
Mm-hmm.
But I find, a lot of the discourse about this game is, oh, you beat a Qatar team with 2 red cards 6-0. We are still beating them 2-0 before they even got their first red card. They showed nothing of any semblance of fight before they got a red card, and I don't think it was going to change in this match. And I think, from the get-go, Canada looked hungry, knowing this was their opportunity to pick up that first win.
Yeah.
And this was the team they were slated to beat for sure. And they had to come out and prove that they can win a game in the World Cup on home soil in front of their fans. And I think they played a great game apart from, the unfortunate injury to Kone. I think everything went Canada's way in this game. Everything kind of went well for Canada. And it sets them up in a great position to stay in Vancouver till the round of 16 potentially.
Exactly. Getting first in the group will guarantee us another game in Canada in the round of 32, which is something that is great because we've shown, we haven't played anywhere else. We've shown that we're really good on home soil, playing these games and getting results. We were expected to win that game, but we were not expected to win that game 6-0, right? Like you said, though, we showed way more intensity. I felt like in the first game against Bosnia and Herzegovina, we were very... It looked like we were a little bit nervous to play in a World Cup on home soil. The commentators were talking in that game about the Qataris, and they were saying, well, the Qatar players were less nervous about the game. They were like, it's no longer on home soil. And he said that, the Canadian team are going to be more nervous because it's on home soil. And they said because we played the last World Cup on home soil, there's a lot more to play for. and you get a little bit more nervous to get a result. And I think Canada showed the complete opposite of that. I mean, we showed, the first game we were a little bit nervous, but the second game we seemed like we were a new team. Really, we played really strong, and yeah, we played with that heart that this was our game to win. And we played with that heart as well that we need to win by a lot of goals because of goal differential. The manager of the Qatar side, is it Lopetegui? He was, had a little tussle with Jesse Marsh at the end of the game, where he was angry because apparently, Canada didn't back down and didn't show respect in the game. And, I think there's for me, I think, if Switzerland, right, didn't win their game by only one goal or something, or they didn't win their game by 4 goals, right, and they won their game by only 1 or 2 goals, I feel we not let down, but not score the 6 goals that we did, right? But because Switzerland scored 4 goals, goal differential matters in this tournament and matters in the group stage, right? So I feel like scoring 6 goals doesn't show necessarily that we're not respectful. It shows that we need to get those goals for our goal differential in this group.
Also, for me, I feel like it'd be more disrespectful to Qatar to not play to your best.
Exactly.
I feel that's just disrespecting the ability of your opponents at that point. And I feel like, that's arguably worse than humiliating them by scoring more goals.
Exactly.
If you're playing, you're just passing around, kind of wasting the time. I think that's even worse than just scoring the goals and playing the game how you want to play, especially in a World Cup like this. At that point, you're kind of already practicing for the next game. You're kind of trying to create scenarios in this game that could reflect something in the next game and attack in an opportunity that is competitive like this and create even more confidence in this team going into their biggest match.
Exactly. I felt like Qatar, though, they were a little bit unlucky with the red cards that they got. The first red card, I felt was a little bit weak. It was...
Yeah, but it is based on the rule book, it has to be a red card.
But based off exactly, right? Wasn't it a denial of goal scoring opportunity?
Yeah, he was the last defender, and Tajon was in front of him, and he kind of got tripped up. Sure, it was a light contact, but the referee called the foul. He called it a penalty, and then VAR reviewed it, and it was outside the box, so it had to be a red card.
Exactly.
They couldn't do anything else.
Yep. And then, of course, the other red card, they had to give it as well because...
I feel like that one, there's a little bit more
I believe
discussion.
in the rule book, though, if the player, from a tackle injures the other player, an injury like that, I think that they have to give it as a red, even though I felt like, Kone breaking his leg, it's a horrible thing. But there was no, the guy who injured him, there was a lot of Canadian fans that were, outraged, and I felt like there wasn't any, intent to injure. He was going for the ball, and you look at it, he was going for the ball. He just mistimed it, heavily.
A really poor tackle that was significantly too late.
Exactly.
And,
But I think that there's a lot of...
Also poor luck.
Yeah.
On Kone's side, because his foot kind of got stuck into the turf, or the grass in this case.
Mm-hmm.
I think if his leg isn't so jammed into the ground, having just landed and trying to push off with that leg, I think he doesn't break his leg in that scenario, and maybe it's only a yellow card.
I think it's just extremely unlucky. It's unlucky for both sides. It's a fluke injury that just happened. And it sucks. It sucks for both sides. Terrible for one side having injured your opponent in that way. Terrible for our side in Canada having Kone gone, and terrible for Kone obviously wanting to play in a World Cup. It's one of the biggest dreams of any footballer, regardless of if you've ever played for a national team before. It's playing in a World Cup, and obviously it fell way short, and way too short because he would have been a mainstay in our team, and it's just really sad. But I think it's sad for both sides. But I feel like you can't go to the player on that Qatar side and say he was doing an intent to injure. He wasn't. It was a poor tackle, but poor tackles happen in football, and tackles like that as well happen in football. And a lot of the time, and most of the time, there's never an injury to be kind of said, and the player has to get stretchered off the field. I think those things are things that happen as flukes, and obviously it happened this time, and it's a sad thing for both sides. I felt it was great. Who got that tackle and red card? What was his name again?
Asima Madibo.
Yeah, apparently he is a great person. Like wouldn't hurt a fly apparently, and you could see it on his face when he did that. Saw that injury, he was really upset about it. He actually went after the game and went into the Canadian players' dressing room and he apologized, which just shows the person that he is, and shows that obviously that thing was not meant to happen, and he really just mistimed his challenge, and it happened that Kone broke his leg. Now, going just back to the game itself, our strikers were involved way more in this game than they've been involved. I felt like, a problem with the Canadian national team is the lack of finishing ability and just the lack of getting our strikers involved in the game.
I think that, the strikers doing really well until Tanny came on.
Yeah.
And he had 30 minutes to try and add a goal to his tally, and he did nothing in this match.
Yeah.
I think, he's got to figure out a way to get more involved. He can create these chances, he can get these shots, but he has to figure out a way, in a game like this, to get involved and kind of really stamp his name in Canada. Or I feel like, his spot is slowly kind of waning, especially if Promise comes into some game here in the future and actually provides something.
Exactly. I mean, he had the most touches in the last game against Bosnia and Herzegovina with 9, and David had 7. But in this game with Larin and David up front, Larin had 11 touches and David had 15. And, obviously David had 3 chances to score, and he scored all 3 of them. But I think we were just better. Our passes were crisper. We were less nervous. We made less easy passes. And I really liked our build-up play. I mean, we had a 91% accurate pass rating versus the 74% in the last game, which is just a crazy good stat. But also we had 32 shots, 10 on target, with 97 touches in the opposition box, which is just absolutely insane as well, having 97 touches in the opposition box. But, I think, yes, we can say this win is great, and this win is something that it's a win that is in the history books, obviously being our first ever win in the World Cup tournament. But we have to look at that Switzerland versus Canada game coming up. The game against Switzerland, obviously we're coming off that extreme high winning 6-0, but they're coming off winning 4-1 against a team that we tied 1-1. I mean, it was looking like it was going to be a 1-1 game until kind of the final minutes where Switzerland turned up with some great play. Some great play by their they have that depth, and that depth was kind of proved to be something that we would look at. And I mean, I think Canada can get a result against Switzerland. I'm predicting it's going to be probably a tie. I mean, we can maybe win the game, but I think a tie would be something that would be great for us, because obviously if we get a result, we get top place. We get to play a third place team, which right now will be Belgium, which is something that's a bit scary. But I think it's a commendable performance overall. Now, Jonathan David obviously got a hat trick. He proved the doubters wrong. I really liked his movement. He went into great attacking positions, and that's why he scored. But also, he was more clinical with his finishing. The last game against Bosnia and Herzegovina, he had 3 shots, I believe, and one of them was a very poor shot at the goalkeeper. And this time, he showed his composure. He had 15 touches in the opposition box, 8 shots, and 3 goals. And, the Iceman, he delivered. He had more intensity. He proved the doubters wrong and showed how good of a player he is. What's your thoughts?
I mean, there's not much else to say, in terms of Jonathan David.
Mm-hmm.
I think, he didn't score. I mean, he scored one really nice goal off the volley.
Yeah.
But, I mean, the other 2 were just about him getting into those right spots that we need our strikers to get into to pick up, loose balls and score those kind of goals that can win games that aren't the prettiest. And,
Yeah.
I think most goals in football are like that.
Yeah.
So you need your striker to get into that position to create those chances and finish those chances.
I mean, totally. He did exactly what we want out of a number 9. Now, big loss, obviously, we talked about it briefly. Ishmael Kone obviously is out. Who replaces him? I think we know the guy who will replace him. That's Nathan Sliba.
I don't think there's not really any doubt. I don't think that Osorio or Sean Rene are gonna come in and start for
Mm-hmm.
our biggest game. I think you have to bring the guy that you put on the pitch to replace him, who scored and assisted.
Mm-hmm.
I think Saliba has had a fantastic season in Belgium. I think he's slated for a big move this summer, especially if he keeps up this kind of performance at the World Cup. He is definitely going to be getting a big move to another massive league, and it just speaks loads to the steps that Canadian footballers are taking and how much they're being recognized right now, and I think that goes for a number of players on this team, especially Luc de Forgeron. He's been a rock on the defense. I think if anybody is being swapped out of a starting spot on the defense, it is now Cornelius.
Yeah.
I don't think he's really had a fantastic game in either one. I think he's the more replaceable player on the backline at the moment.
Exactly. I mean, with Kone, obviously it's a hard player to replace. But yeah, Nathan Sliba, I think he's up to that task. A lot of people have been quoting him as a big game player. Obviously not scoring that much goals, but he is that kind of deep lying playmaker. But he's scored in really big games, especially for Team Canada. And obviously, he took his goal well. It was a well-placed free kick. Obviously, paying homage to Kone after that goal with raising up his jersey. Big respect to him for that. I think we're playing against a really strong Swiss side with really strong midfielders. Obviously, you got Granit Xhaka in that midfield. And I think he's up to the task. He's a stockier build, a big physical presence in that midfield. And I think it's just something that is just what we need for that game and what we need for this tournament now. He controls that midfield. He's good in that 1v1 situation. And if we can control the midfield against a midfield of Switzerland, that would be a great feat for Canada and something that we can work on going into the next games and going into the knockout matches. Because obviously, if we don't lose against if we don't lose against Switzerland by more than 6 goals with us not scoring, so if we lose 7-0,
well, then Bosnia would also need to win against Qatar with a fair number of goals
exactly.
as well. It's really difficult for us to fall below second in this group.
Yeah.
Nearly mathematically impossible at this point.
Exactly. So, and I think because of that, we need to get a result. And I think that Saliba will be the best option. He had a 94 pass accuracy last game. which is extremely valuable, especially going into this game against a tough midfield opposition, and something that we can kind of build on. Now, where does Davies fit in? Because obviously, I think if Davies is healthy and ready and cleared to play, I think he plays against a Switzerland due to the fact that Switzerland is our toughest opposition yet. I think he fits in left mid, but I want to know your thoughts.
I mean, based on the way we played without him, do you want to start the game with him on the bench again and see if he needs to come on into this match? I think that's how I would play it.
Mm-hmm.
Just because you don't want, he wants to play and he's technically been cleared and able to play.
Yeah.
Do you want to even potentially risk him getting injured in a match like this when he doesn't maybe necessarily need to play?
True. He has been.
You want this.
He's got re-injured multiple times after being cleared to play. So I guess
you want him to have ample time to really, really be cleared to play and not have that immediate risk of re-injury.
Yeah.
Which we've seen many times happen with Alphonso Davies, which is incredibly unfortunate for him.
Mm-hmm.
I just think he pushes himself to play a little bit too hard sometimes, and he kind of says he's more ready than he is because of how eager he is to play. And I think, the pattern of seeing how he, how often he gets re-injured, I think now is kind of changing the way that, teams are going to approach his, rehab and things around injuries like that.
No, totally. I mean, I guess, if he comes off the bench, there's two positions that he could play, and that's left back or left mid. And I feel like that's just dependent on how good the players are playing at that moment because he can play both positions. I think that if he is starting, I think left back is a lock for Larea, so I think he'll be playing left mid. I feel like Larea has been very strong and a very good player for us. I mean, he won all of his ground duels last game, but I think the main thing that I like about that side, especially the left side versus the right side, is that we have this attacking fullback mentality on that left side where we have overlapping runs between the left mid and the left back, where Larea is pushed up all the way almost to the goal line for crosses and just to get touches in the box. He had 8 touches in the opposition box as a left back last game, which is really promising. And, he likes to do that overlap, which means that if Davies is playing left mid, he can kind of go back and help on the defensive front. And obviously having 2 players that are really good at, attacking and defense and can play that left wing back role where you're pushing up the pitch and overlapping runs with the left mid, I feel like is really versatile and could be something that's really good on that left side, seeing that we have overlapping runs. But that being said, where does Ali Ahmed go? Because I think Ali Ahmed deserves a playing spot in this tournament. I feel like he's done a lot for our team.
I mean, yes, but if you have to play somebody like Alphonso Davies,
Exactly.
are you really that worried about playing Ali Ahmed in this match?
Exactly. Yeah.
Ali Ahmed, sure, he's a good player, but I think, if you have the chance to, play Alphonso Davies, you're going to do it.
Yeah.
And even, if you want to go with, say, the strategy of only playing Davies in the second half if you need to,
Mm-hmm.
Ali Ahmed can still play half this game and try and prove that he deserves to play more.
Yeah.
I just think that, in this tournament, he hasn't, I think he's played pretty good. He just hasn't, created anything really spectacular that really shines out, in my opinion.
Do you think he would play over Tejan on that right side?
No. I think Tejan has kind of locked that spot himself. He rarely ever, isn't starting there.
Yeah.
Especially under Jesse Marsh, I think Tejan is
A mainstay.
a mainstay on the wing
fair.
there. And I think just seeing how much he can create, he has proved he can play well for Canada. And I think that is valuable to still have on the starting side there.
Yeah. Now, Moise Bombito, do you think he starts next game or do you think he comes off the bench?
I mean, I think, it's really between whether you want to I think either way, there will be a defender swap at halftime, regardless of who you start, just based off of how we've done it in the last couple games.
Yeah.
Against Qatar, Cornelius came off at halftime for Bombito, and Bombito played the rest of the game, and I think did fine. I don't think either one of them really did anything special.
It's hard to really talk about the defensive game when we were basically on the attacking front for a majority of it. Qatar had 2 shots, 0 on target that whole game.
But even a guy like Luc de Forgerols, he had a 7.3 rating in this game at center back because he created 2 chances.
And we talk about that though too. Like I think Luc de Forgerols should be starting because I feel like he's deserved it more than the other center backs have, even though the other center backs have played really good games.
Well, he's earned his spot in this team and the respect of this team. Being 20 years old and having started 2 World Cup games now, I think he played 2 fantastic games and looks poised to keep kind of growing as a player. And I think going to have some sort of role at Fulham this season in the Premier League.
For sure. Now, before we move on to a couple other games, I want to talk about Jesse Marsch. Would you be, if you went to a club, would you do some of his dance moves on that he did on pitch side?
Well, if there was the space to do it, because he was moving pretty good.
He was.
So you kind of need some sort of runway to do that kind of move. Unless you're just doing it like in one spot, but then it doesn't hit as hard.
Can you show the camera the dance move?
I don't know. It's like kind of like it's like I don't know. It's like doing like DJ something. I don't know.
Yeah,
he's like moving both hands though, so I don't really know what it is. But
he was very happy.
He was excited about the penalty call that never actually happened. But
I mean, he was extremely enthusiastic that game. I mean, right from the start, he was belting out "O Canada," which was extremely cool to see, and obviously those dance moves. He has, been very animated this tournament on the sideline. Obviously, he was animated after Jonathan David kind of passed it to the goalkeeper during the Bosnia and Herzegovina game, and obviously really animated for this game with those great dance moves and obviously with that singing the national anthem. And I feel like that's just what you need for Canada. You need someone that is passionate about the game and wants to play. And I mean, he is an extremely talented manager, obviously managing some of the top, like really top teams in the top leagues. I mean, he managed, I believe he managed one of the Red Bull teams. I'm not sure which one though. I believe it was Leipzig, but it could have been Salzburg as well. I think it was Leipzig, though. And
both.
Okay, so he was in the Red Bull system.
He was...
And he managed Leeds as well.
3 years at Red Bull New York.
Okay.
Then 1 year as the assistant coach at Leipzig. 2 years at Salzburg. And then he went to Leipzig for kind of like half a season before going to Leeds for a year.
Yeah, and he managed Leeds in the Premier League. And then they got relegated. But obviously he's a great manager, and I think he's been our best manager like Canada's national team has ever had. He's extremely passionate about the game and passionate about his players, and he's created this community that I don't think any other manager has. Now, moving on, we have 7 minutes left. What do you want to talk about? Any game in particular that you're itching to talk about? I mean, we can talk about. There's two games I want to talk about, and both of them were some really decent goalkeeping. And the first game is the Cabo Verde against Uruguay game.
That's not good goalkeeping.
Not great goalkeeping, but great moments, I should say.
I don't think both goalies played terrible.
I wouldn't say great goalkeeping. I would say great goalkeeping for this other game, which is Ecuador versus Curacao. Which game do you want to talk about?
I think, You kind of already touched on Cape Verde last episode.
Yeah.
So
So you want to talk about Curacao today?
might as well.
All right, Ecuador v Curacao. It was Eloy Room's show. It was the Eloy Room show. He made 15 saves, 9 diving saves, and was impeccable during that game. I mean, I think it was kind of a tale of Ecuador's missed chances, but it was, another point for Curacao. Or not another point.
They got demolished.
They got
against
yes,
Germany.
they got demolished against Germany. They still scored against Germany though. They lost 7-1.
I mean, they had chances to score in this game against Ecuador.
Yeah.
Ecuador's goalie did have to make 3 pretty good saves. He prevented
I mean,
0.88 goals. So
Wow.
they did
Yeah.
have a chance to get a goal in this game.
I mean,
too.
it's a nation of 150,000 people, and they got a great result. I mean, they got their first ever point, right? Ecuador, tale of missed chances, like I said. I mean, Ecuador had 75% of the possession. Curacao did have 10 shots, 3 on target, though. He did have to make 3 saves, like you said. But I think that, it's just a great win for that Curacao side. But I think Ecuador is a team that, we would want to see more with the players that they have.
I mean, Eloy Room, though, 9 diving saves, 10
I know.
saves inside the box,
15 saves overall.
2.27 goals prevented. That's like an insane kind of.
How much Instagram followers does he have
I don't
now?
think he gained that many, to be honest with you. I can take a look.
It's crazy because now in the World Cup, we have this thing now where because social media is just so big and large, it was even large last term, but you didn't really
he's
see
only
it.
at 1.1, even though he's had arguably the
best one out of
goaltending
anything.
performance.
But the social media craze now for this World Cup is something that we've never seen before, even though the last World Cups have had social media. And I mean, social media was huge back in 2022 as well. But there's this social media craze where if a player from a smaller nation or a nation that's not expected to do well in the tournament has a great performance, they get a ton of Instagram followers. I mean, we saw it for
Well, yeah, Varginha. He's
Varginha.
now at 15.7
he has more
million.
followers, I'm pretty sure, than Manuel Neuer.
He does, yeah. I think he's like the 2nd or 3rd most followed goalkeeper of all time on social media. Yeah.
Which is just absolutely crazy.
Iker Casillas is the number 1 for
Yeah.
some reason.
I mean,
it makes sense. He's a good goalkeeper.
he's a good goalkeeper,
I
but
just wouldn't really
also because
assume-
he's retired, he has more. I think he has just more time to do things and
I
post
guess.
things.
I just wouldn't assume him to be, a big social media kind of guy.
No,
Iker
but he does
Casillas.
a lot of like partnerships, I believe, and stuff like that, which is kind of neat. I mean, there's this like really, it's just a really cool thing. Obviously, Curacao got their first point, and it's just absolutely great goalkeeping, absolutely impeccable. But I just love like the social media craze now. Obviously, you got Tim Payne, who
He got an assist.
did get an assist last game, but also gained a ton of followers because he was like the most least known player or something that this Argentinian social media star chose out. But you have all these players that play and have really good performances, and it's a lot of the times the goalkeepers for the small nations, and the goalkeepers get the praise and get the follows. I'm surprised, Room hasn't gotten a lot of the follows because yes, he has had the best outline.
He still got, I think, probably 800,000 or whatever.
Yeah, he didn't have that
But-
much. He still got into the millions, which is something that's just absolutely crazy. But
You would
comparatively to
assume,
Varginha,
there wasn't a big social media movement to follow him, which was kind of surprising, considering he's playing on the smallest ever nation to qualify. for the World
exactly
Cup.
the smallest ever nation.
I would assume, he'd be the one kind of getting the big story here, but I guess not.
I would have loved to see Iceland in as well. So you have the smallest nation to ever qualify, the second smallest nation to ever qualify, then you have the third smallest nation to ever qualify, all in the same World Cup. That would be really cool.
Can't wait for the day where San Marino qualifies.
Imagine
and then
the
no one will
scenes.
ever be able to take the title.
Imagine the scenes.
I mean, they've been playing some decent football
Well,
recently.
I think Vatican City would be the only people that would be able to.
They don't really have a national
But
team.
they-
I mean, San Marino's been pretty close to picking up some wins recently. They lost only 2-1 to Azerbaijan, 2-1 to Bangladesh.
Yeah, they're a very promising
Drew
team.
against Andorra,
hmm
2-1 loss to Faroe Islands.
Yep.
They only lost 1-0 to Czechia, who's in the World Cup.
Which is just a crazy thing.
And I mean,
And they
You
did,
never know
they
where
did,
they're gonna
They did
go.
pick up a win, so that's good.
I mean, the best players on San Marino do play in like the 3rd or 4th division of Italy, typically.
Yeah, it's
So,
a lot
I mean,
of
it's like
that's They don't really have that player
impossible to
that
kind
that plays for the San Marino national team, but then also plays for that plays in the top leagues. So I feel like a lot of those players, they switch their nationality to Italy and they play for Italy instead.
They got Nani, who plays for
Like a Series C side.
he plays for a Series C side called Arzignano Cimpiano,
Well,
Something like that.
that's a neat name. Well,
who finished 9th in Group A of the Serie A.
we've gotten to the end of our podcast episode, so I'm gonna have to cut us off here. Zach, can you do your sign off, please?
Bonjour, au revoir, and have a great rest of your week.
Thanks for this great episode, and thanks for listening or watching, and see you later, guys.